Hello, YouTubers. Fall is here and winter is just around the corner, so it's time to get some wintertime preps in. If you're like me, you live in an area prone to ice or snow, you want to be prepared so that it's time to gather in supplies you need. Today, I want to talk about prepping in general, what prepping is, why I prep, and ways that you can prep. So let's get started. If you go back to the 1970s or 80s, there were these survivalist groups you would occasionally hear about. Some were doomsday survivalists and thought the Soviet Union was going to drop bombs on us. Some were separatists and anti-government groups. But that's not what prepping is. A prepper is your next door neighbor. It's your co-worker and your friends. A prepper is the average person who says catastrophic events can occur and I want to prepare myself and my family as much as possible. Ice events occur and other events causing power outages or roads to be closed from time to time, and you want to be prepared. In situations like this, you don't want to be stranded without means of providing the essentials for yourself and your family. Prepping is a method of gathering supplies and essentials for events that cause ordinary life to be interrupted. It's as simple as that. Prepping is not an extremist measure, but a common sense approach to providing for you and your loved ones. So why do I prep? A lifetime of events. All through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I've seen ice and snow events that have closed roads and left power off for weeks at a time. About 25, 30 years ago, there was an ice event which I was woefully unprepared for, but I survived it by rushing to the local general store and picking up some last-minute items. I learned a valuable lesson from that event, and I'll talk about it more later. But then in 2012, there was a shooting down in Florida and riots and looting that took place afterwards. And since then, there's been several rioting and looting events that have occurred around the country. I began realizing that civil unrest can certainly occur in the United States. Then COVID came, and I lived in an area at the time that experienced shortages of food and basic living necessities, which opened my eyes drastically. My perception has certainly changed over the years, and I now realize that prepping is a necessity, which is why I prep. About 25 years ago, I was living life doing my own thing. I wasn't watching any news or weather, just enjoying life as much as possible. One cold, dark winter day, sleet began to fall, and a friend told me that the weather forecast was calling for an ice storm. So I ran to a small mom and pop general store. They had a battery-powered Coleman lantern, extra batteries, and even a battery-powered alarm clock, all of which I purchased. I'll plug in here that I support shopping at these small local stores, even if it means paying a little bit extra. Oftentimes they'll have the odd things and the odds and ends that you're going to need in the event of a crisis. If something had been defective with that lantern, the old gentleman running the store would have repaired the lantern or replaced it for me. In a crunch, you're going to want that kind of service that you're not going to get in a big box store. So support these small local establishments as much as possible. Because of the lesson I learned during that ice event, I now watch the news and weather faithfully. Other events have caused me to want to be prepared. I'll always keep extra supplies on hand, including fuel for my generator, which I've acquired. Prepping is a simple measure. I watched a video I found on YouTube from a guy, I think his name was Tiddlywinks, and he mentioned practical prepping. Things like keeping canned goods on hand and extra clean clothes, just practical means of prepping. Now, I don't know anything about this guy, but his video on practical prepping made sense to me. Now, I've bought some freeze-dried food, but that gets expensive, so I took that practical route that guy was talking about. I set up a shelf, and when I went shopping, I just bought a little bit extra here and there. The extra items went on the shelf with the oldest in the front and the newest items in the back. First in, first out. If I needed 2 cans of spinach, I bought 3 or 4. If I bought a couple of cans of ravioli, I bought 3 or 4. And the extra items went on that shelf. And before I knew it, I had about 6 months of practical food items on hand. The practical things that you'll need. And then I kept building from there. I found that most canned goods have about a 2-year shelf life. So occasionally I use from that shelf and replenish with the new items in the back. I still have about 3 months supply of freeze-dried foods, but I have many months supply of canned goods. I keep a supply of other items on hand. I've bought LED lanterns and keep batteries on hand for them. I have fuel storage and stable fuel stabilizer, which I'm sure to keep ready, especially in winter months. I won't go into all the items I store because that's something that you'll have to plan for in your own situation. Prepping is a common sense approach of having all the supplies you need for you and your family in the event of a crisis. Preppers are not extremist groups, but they're your co-worker, your neighbor, and they should be you. I prep because a lifetime of events has shaped my worldview. God's given mankind the ability to think and reason, and we should use that intelligence to prepare for life events as much as possible. I prep because I want my family to have food and necessities to make it through a crisis event. A lifetime of experience has taught me to be self-sufficient as much as possible and to help others where I can, even something as simple as making this video. Prepping does not have to bleed your pocketbook. I recommend slowly building an inventory of goods so that you can be prepared. If you want to know and understand more about current events, I recommend getting a modern translation of the Bible. I recommend the New Living Translation. And read the book of Revelation, and you'll know what's coming up. I hope this video has helped you to understand prepping. God bless, and stay safe.